Hello friends, it's your brother Hampton. I want to make a video on how to make friends or the process of making friends, especially as we get older and well into adulthood, because some of us may have noticed that it's easier to make friends when we're younger because we're forced into different experiences like school. If we're friends with our siblings or family, then you usually share a home and you're more able and given more opportunities to bond that way, probably on purpose. It was set up structured that way so we could form those early bonds. And as we get older and more established into a routine, that's not necessarily bad, but we aren't as exposed to new things, and as a result, the people we meet may die down a little bit, and our opportunity to make close friends may also die down a little bit. So when people ask me that they tell me that they're lonely and they want to make better friends and they want to make more friends and they feel like they could be a good friend, but they just want someone to share life with, really. And I think a lot of people go through this, even if they don't, not everyone is talking about it like it's top of mind, but I think most normal humans will want some kind of bond with another human or multiple humans and just be able to share life. And we see this through romance too. So we usually want a significant other. But even platonically, I think we have a desire to want to share our experiences with other people. So I put some serious thought into it because I've made multiple videos on this, but there's seems to always be people talking about how to make more friends. And there's two different ways to go about it. And then I'll talk about two different aspects to it, because one part is something I've discussed before, where we can share experiences with other people. And that way we can meet more people. But the other part of it is also learning to be a good friend. Like, how do you become a person? Instead of asking yourself, how do I make more friends? Sorry, I have some family visiting. Instead of asking yourself, how do I make more friends? Another question we can ask ourselves is, how do I become the type of friend that treats their friends the way that I would want friends to treat me? So how do I become a good friend? And there is a process behind that. And part of that involves perhaps shedding a little bit of insecurities and ego that many of us have. Not all of us, but perhaps many of us have, and learning to grow as a result of that. So we're shedding our shell so we can grow larger and grow as people, so to speak. But the first part, the shared experience, there is two different ways you can go about it. So I won't say that, but there's a way that I do it, and then there's a way that's probably more applicable to other people because I'm different. And not saying that I'm special, but I'm different in the sense that I'm different from you and you may be different from other people. So there's different ways to approach things, and I don't want to only tell you how something would work for me, but I want to share it because some people will be like this. I discovered that a good way for me to meet new people, I never, believe it or not, I couldn't manifest that kind of chemistry that other people seem to have in the workplace and school. As you go through life, some people just seem to link up and they're like, yeah, and they're like, boom, now we're friends, right? And even if not very genuine, they seem to make friends and learn to group into these cliques very early, very easily. I didn't really have that. If you know, like the stereotype of the protagonist or some character just kind of watching everyone else do that, I was kind of like that. But I also wasn't socially awkward, in my opinion. I didn't have a fear of interacting with people. I was just a little bit different, right? I was still friendly. People liked me, but I wasn't always welcome into the inner circles. With given a couple of few exceptions, because I am blessed to have some very close friends, but I wasn't quite as integrated into groups as other people. And I did have some close friends and family, and that really got me far. And part of that is luck, which I'll talk about, but just like a lot of other things that are luck, like whether it's relationships, business, and friendships in this case, part of it is usually, there's an element of luck. Usually it's pretty hard to deny that. But when someone can repeatedly do something, I usually think there's also maybe some skill or some lessons that I can learn from that person. So what I found, instead of kind of waiting for a group to appear and then me hoping to be inducted into that group, because I always had a little bit of trouble with that, because I have maybe some people can relate to this, I have some reservations about how I want to be right? So I try to accommodate other people. I just pat the mic. I try to accommodate other people, but I generally just want to be how I want to be. And I don't necessarily want to change my personality and behaviors too much just for the sake of fitting in. I want shared company, but I don't know if I want it that much that I would change what I consider to be my true self. So I have some idiosyncrasies and things. And it's just things like, maybe I don't want to talk as much sometimes, or maybe I want to talk more sometimes. Maybe I want to talk about my hobbies that other people aren't interested in. So what I found from that, because I think some people would conclude that they're just meant to be more of a loner. But what I found is the time in my life where I made the most friends and I made the most connections was actually a time where I was building hybrid. So pursuing passions can work for some people, but for me, pursuing a passion involves building things. So when I find something that I like, in this case, it's fitness and teaching fitness to others and learning media and social media and just building a community like that, and going in with what I tried to have were pure intentions, really brought a lot of new people into my life. Not only people that liked my vibe, that were interested in what I'm building, but also people that could help me and other people that I could help, both of which are valuable, because as we start to build things and we have more capability, that introduces this new ability that a lot of people don't discuss enough, I feel like, where I'll see someone that I now can go, I can help you, rather than waiting for someone to come by and saying they can help me. So let's say you're a musician or an artist. Instead of waiting for someone to pick you up and say, oh, you're very talented, let's make you the next big superstar. When you have the ability, within some degree, to take and pick someone else and be like, wow, you're very talented, let's see if we can work on a collaboration together. And then you sometimes are their big break. Not that I'm anywhere near as big as a record company or a music label, things like that, or a publisher. But just building a small thing, having capability in that and spending time with that, you will also have the ability to connect with other people in different dynamics in different ways. And for me, it was really building. And there's different things that pop up while I'm building things that you wouldn't necessarily expect, just because we are exposed to a very local nature of community. But there's a lot of bad things people can say about the internet, but one of the good things is when you look in the right places, you can find people that are like you, even if you thought there weren't that many people, right? Let's say like you have a very specific hobby, underwater basket weaving, right? Well, you might not know any underwater basket weaving enthusiasts in your small town, but you find a Reddit, a subreddit, you find a Facebook group, or you find a YouTube channel. It's like, wow, there's 10,000 of you, right? And that's a pretty small hobby, but 10,000 people is a lot, and you can bond with these people and you can connect with them, and you might find some. And once you get like, I grew up in kind of an age where their internet friendships were gradually being considered more and more real. And I'd have made a lot of close connections, first online, but some people don't think online connections, online friendships are a thing, but you can meet in person, do so safely, of course, but you can meet in person and you can develop very nice connections and friendships and have your life be enriched through that way. So it's definitely one thing to do. And what I did was build. So I took something that was a passion of mine and I built resources. I reached out to other people and I tried to learn and spread my knowledge and guidance to other people. And like, I'm still doing that with hybrid calisthenics, Coffee with Hampton, hybrid creators, the webtoon we're now making, and the books that I'm writing. And I don't say that hopefully in any kind of, some people may take it this way, but I'm not trying to elevate myself in a sense that it's not supposed to be self-aggrandizing. Not saying I'm so good at this. It's saying that I'm trying to do it. It's a pursuit, not necessarily a goal. It's something that I'm aiming to do. And through that process, I met a lot of cool people, because you just seem to meet a lot of cool people on that way. Now, building something for you around your passion doesn't have to be a fitness YouTube channel that you later spread to different things, but it could be a charity that you're doing in your side time. I know we can't spend all our time doing these things, but we can spend some time. right? You can build a volunteer effort. It's like, hey, my area doesn't only has a couple of initiatives to help perhaps people who need food, hungry children. Maybe I could arrange something like that. Maybe I could help do like a bake sale or something like that. You don't need necessarily tremendous organizational or business talent to do something. You can build, but as you develop more things around something that you like, you tend to get a lot better. And then when you have a lot more attention, there's more eyeballs on you and there's more opportunity. And meeting people along this path, you can form some very close connections. And I was thinking about this, and it feels like, man, doesn't that like it? I thought of it, and this is how I made friends. But I was thinking, I was like, man, it kind of feels like I'm manufacturing an opportunity to meet people. And some people may feel that way listening to this, but it's really not. Shared experiences with other humans that later become your friends is one of the most powerful moments we can experience with another person. It's no coincidence. It's rather than the exception, I would say that's the norm, right? So I know some people, not everyone gets along with their family, but a good, healthy family dynamic, those are bonds you can make for life because you, especially siblings or good parents, you grow up with them. That shared experience is so powerful. And right, childhood friends that you really deeply connect with, right, those can last decades, right, when you're going through school, right? And these are all pursuits that you can try. You know, these shared experiences are sometimes the friends we make for a lifetime. And for one reason or another, like sometimes these friendships drop off. Something may happen, you may move, there's different things. And we, as I said, we don't have as many of these experiences as we grow up, so we don't make as many friends. But if we continue this pursuit, rather than think, how do I make friends? It's like, how do I continue my pursuits and continue trying to grow as a person and continue trying to pursue my passions? That will lead to more friends and more possibilities for connections and hopefully more human connection later on. And the second part of that is a nice little segue, kind of like a built-in transition. The second part of that not everyone may consider, but I feel like I should bring up, even if it might, maybe it isn't necessarily the most pleasant thing to visit for some people, but is whether or not you're a good friend. And you may think you're a good friend, and you might very well be. Most people want to get along with others and will try to make some effort to get along with others. I know there's certain like mental conditions and tendencies that might inhibit that, but most people want some type of connection. But a lot of us probably know of someone who thinks they're a good friend, but could be a little better. It's like, man, I don't want to teach this person that he can't talk to people this way. I wish someone else would do it, but someone needs to tell him about that. And I think a reasonable question that we can ask ourselves as adults or as people that are trying to grow, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, what if we are that person? What if we are the person that other people want? Like, man, like we met a lot of people, but they just don't really connect with us. Like, man, it's not just that you have different hobbies. It's, you might need to work on yourself in terms of how much you care about other people and how well you communicate your thoughts and feelings, right? And whenever I bring up this thing or any kind of like personal development thing, I feel like there are some people who think, well, everyone is trying to improve, but really we're just perfect the way we are. And I always want to add my usual caveat that you might be perfect the way you are, but I am not perfect the way I am. I might have a true essence that I want to develop, and I don't have to change that. But I just think, like, all of us have grown, right? Like, when you start as children and you're a baby, you may not be the most compassionate baby, right? Like, again, you have your soul, you have your essence, where you have the potential to do a lot of good. But when you're growing and you are a baby, a literal child, you might be more focused on yourself. Understandably so. You might cry when you don't get what you want immediately, when you're hungry, when you're tired. And as we grow, we usually like, okay, well, I am hungry and tired, but other people are also hungry and tired, so maybe I can hold in my thoughts and feelings a little bit more like that, or offer to feed them first, or offer to see if I can do something so they can go rest. right? And then they can do the same for you. And that is the foundation, I think, of a good, healthy relationship, whether like platonic, friendship, or business relationship, is mutual give and take. So once again, how to develop yourself into the type of friend that you would want to be friends with, I think is a good question we can ask ourselves. And I think being able to socialize with other people when you make those connections really helps. And there is a tendency, I think, where even how we divide personality types of some people feel like they aren't meant to socialize with other people. They aren't meant to connect with other people. And I just like what we were talking about before, I think there's part of that is just our personality. We may not, some people may be more talkative than others, and I think that part's fine. But learning to socialize at least a little bit, at least part of that, is a learnable skill. And I mean that intending to give relief to other people, to where it's like you don't have to be born with that. Almost all things are learnable to some extent. They just like, when you think about here's a skill that a lot of people think you have to be born with, the ability to sing. As someone who learned to sing somewhat and really wasn't able to sing the first time you tried, it is a learnable skill, right? And when you think about this like insurmountable mountain, you're like, wow, this skill, like this can't be learned, you have to be born with it. You usually realize that when you look closer, you usually realize that it can be broken down into multiple micro skills. So singing is like, so pitch control, you might already have that. You might only need one missing piece to make everything else work. But usually there's multiple pieces. Like there's pitch control, then there's tempo, then there's tone. So there's a skill element, and there's a part where you're actually developing your voice. And it's like, oh, okay, interesting. Sometimes you just have to keep this here instead of changing everything to where it sounds too crazy. Wow, suddenly you can sing somewhat, right? And I think socialization is similar to that. You might not prefer it, you might not have the talent for it that some people do, but you may have some talent in a case that can be developed. So how do we develop ourselves to be able to socialize? How do we develop ourselves to be able to be a better friend? So I think things like, and I wrote this down because I thought, I was thinking of ideas while I was walking. I think we can learn to understand others a little better. We can try to relate to them when they're speaking, and we can say, hey, I'm sorry you went through that. That sounds really rough. And we can learn kind of their preferences over time of whether or not they want us just nod along or share a story from ourselves, because some people like that and others don't. We can show sympathy, we can do that, we can share our own story, and we can help others. So I think there's a lot of talk nowadays, understandably so, once again, around what about me, right? Like I want to stop being too giving to others to where I'm taken advantage of. And 100%, don't let, I don't want others to take advantage of you all the time and for you to be a doormat. But as a result of this wariness of being taken advantage of, I feel like there's a lot of people in the world, millions, with their hand out like this. So they're wanting something for themselves because they're tired of being taken advantage of. But if and when you are able, and you feel like you're able, and you can do so without building resentment and being upset, if you can also have your hand out, but like this, where you give them, or like this, where you can help them up, that can make a tremendous amount of difference. So once again, to summarize the video, I would say that there's meeting other people, and how I do that is by building, and how others do that is by pursuing a passion. So you don't have to build your own thing. The people that I met were pursuing their own passion, in this case, learning fitness. And as a result, I've built business relationships as a result. It's like, hey, we're both trying to get more fit. I appreciate your push-up tutorial, Hampton. But hey, I also, I'm a software developer. I'm like, oh, son of a guy, I need software. It's like, or hey, I do design work. I'm like, hey, I need some design work. I do it too, but maybe we can work together. It's like, hey, I'm an artist. I'm like, wow, you're a great artist. I would love to do some work with you, and things like that. So you can build your own thing, or you can kind of pursue passions and not follow, but you can kind of go where other people are building things. And either way, the first one, you probably get it's a lot harder because it's hard to get people, like imagine opening a restaurant trying to get people to go there. It's easier just to go to a restaurant. But either way, you'll meet new people. The first one's it's harder, but more specific to you. But the second one is easier. And the other half of that, so there's meeting new people, and the other half is learning to be a better friend and a better person and opening ourselves to that. And there's an important caveat that I wrote down that I want to bring up, where learning to communicate is really important. I'm going to make several videos on communication, especially what I call empathetic communication, where you first understand what someone's trying to say before you, and especially when it's a deep debate or conversation, you first understand what they're trying to say, and then you restate it to them in a way that they find agreeable, to where it's like, so you're trying to say that you're frustrated at this, and they say yes. That's a very valuable skill, to be able to reiterate and summarize what someone is trying to say in a way that they find acceptable, and then be able to connect with that. It doesn't have to be arguments. It can just be when someone is giving you a suggestion, when someone is asking a question. You say, is this what you're asking? And you're confused about this. And being able to do that and offer insight in a way that is actually valuable to them. Sometimes you're like, yeah, that is a good way to phrase it. I didn't know that I thought that I didn't know how to put that into words, but you just did. That's a great way to connect with other people. But you can do all of that. You can do all of that. I wrote down a certain way of putting it because I like that. You can do all those things to improve and care about other people and communicate, and you may still not quite feel right about certain people. You're like, man, like I am trying to give, but the things they're asking of me, I'm just not comfortable with, right? And is this what Hampton means? Is this like giving of myself? I have to be a little bit uncomfortable? And it's hard to answer that question. But I will say, if there's a nagging feeling that there's something wrong over months and years, it's quite possible those people just aren't for you, right? Like, I don't want everyone just to blame themselves. I like accountability. I like discipline. I like the idea of building something and having other people join it. I like that, like this quest, this adventure, the call to adventure is great. But I don't think everything is your fault. I don't think everything is my fault, right? When I'm not joking. So I think that if we find people and we're like, man, I'm trying to make friends with this group of people, but they just aren't, I just don't feel right around them, that might be fine, right? Because once again, I want to say that the difference between 0 and 1 friend is probably the most substantial. I gotta say, it's the most substantial. Like, having nobody to talk to and having one person to talk to makes a huge difference, right? And then the difference between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. Having like 2 or 3 close friends, if you have that and you, instead of looking for new ones, you can, but if you really build your bond with them and you do things together, you offer to do things together, you offer to help them, and sometimes they offer to help you, and you like the rapport you have, you like the connection you have, that is a tremendous blessing, right? For you to have in your life. And like, hopefully they consider you a tremendous blessing to have in their lives too. And that kind of dynamic is really great. And most of us, if we keep pursuing our passion for building things and keep trying to grow as people, we won't immediately find someone. I think that's the luck element, right? So like, you can have all these things, and let's say like, we're trying to find a significant other and get married. Sometimes it just takes time, right? So you can have all of that, and you may not be able to make friends right away. You might not be able to make those connections right away. And over time, you might be able to better discern like, this is something where I could work on myself and improve. And other times, like, man, I did everything I could, and I think these people just weren't for me, but that's okay. You know, I don't have to cut them out of my life, so I can just limit and say I'll spend less time with them necessarily. You don't have to cut everyone else off. That's a big thing. You can just limit. You can say, okay, like I see how they are, I understand, but that isn't quite my vibe, and I might not be theirs, and that's okay, because later on, when you find someone that you work with, that can be a really nice magic moment. I wish there was a way we can just like bring everyone close together like that. But one of the ways that we can do that is, the first part is to find passions and people with similar shared interests. They later on turn into shared experiences, and then you can build those close bonds and hopefully find people to share your life with and create wonderful memories and connections. I hope this can help. Thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, my friend. Oh yeah, I guess share this with a friend if you have one. Apparently shares are of growing importance in social media.